Hello and welcome! Silrace here with Star Citizen. Let's talk about aUEC, Alpha UEC, a currency added to the game in the latest update, and my issues with it, alright? My issues with the name Alpha UEC, to be specific. Because this video has nothing to do with the actual how you spend it or what you spend it on or how you get it. This has to do with the name. And I'm going to give you good reasons for why the name is a problematic at the moment. And I'm hoping the devs take note. Okay, anyway, let's get to it. So Alpha UEC, aUEC. Firstly, this name is going to get confusing when you look at the fact that there was already UEC in the game for a long time, and people who aren't really into the game are going to get confused. When you have two names which are so similar to each other that they essentially are one letter difference, you're going to have people who are confused. Whether those people want to dig in enough to find out the difference, that's an issue, alright? You don't want this stuff to be confusing to anybody whom you might want to draw into the game, alright? It should never be confusing. Naming policies on things like this should be in such a fashion that they cannot be confused with each other. This is a currency you spend in a game, and granted, you cannot buy this currency with real money, but it's still currency. You're still using it to purchase something. You're still using it as a reward for things. It should not be confused with any other currency. The name should be different. If you look at other MMORPGs out there, there is a reason why you have different named currencies in those games. The other thing is, for which advocates for the name to be different, if you already had a different name for it, then you wouldn't have to go back and change, you know, headers and whatnot in the code itself related to the name. If you later decide that you need to bring this currency with you through the alpha to beta to actual release itself, because it would already have those names, that name put in place. Right now that name is Alpha UEC, aUEC. And then once you decide that, oh man, we actually need to take this with us, then you need to go back and change things, alright? So changing them early to whatever might be needed down the line obviously saves you work time. No need to go back anymore. And speaking of taking it through the alpha to beta to actual release, there is a reason many MMORPGs use multiple currencies for their, you know, games. To control, firstly to control economy a little bit, but also to control player progression to a certain extent. How fast or how slow players can acquire certain things. Like for example, let's say you would work with a certain corporation and that corporation rewards you with their own currency, which you cannot do anything with but buy the corporation stuff. That could be a way to, well, slow down players acquiring things from that corporation. It works like that in many games. World of Warcraft is a really good example of this. It has multiple currencies which are all tied to different things. Whether that is a good system, that is up to debate, obviously. It's up to you to decide if you like that system or you don't. However, it is one way to do things. And if Star Citizen developers, folks behind the scenes, eventually decide that we might actually want to do something like this, if this name is already different, they can use this instead. So please come up with a different name, swap it in a future update, and like give reasons that, okay, it could have been confused with aUEC, like, well, Alpha UEC, aUEC, and actual UEC. Too confusing, so we changed it, alright? Don't panic. And then you can later down the line use it for other things. Because you might want to, you might need to. depending how you want to do the stuff. You could even argue from economic standpoint that having multiple currencies in the world itself, which are rewarded to player for, you know, doing missions and whatnot in different parts of the galaxy and so forth, could be a good thing, because it would allow creating a depth to the economy by making players change currencies from one to other to be able to purchase things at certain other parts of the galaxy. For example, saying that the Frontier has a completely different, you know, currency than what the actual core center systems do. As an example. So, yeah, obviously that requires, you know, economic management from the side of the developers and so forth then, but it's a possibility and it could be used to create depth, and it would be fantastic for everybody of us who have been with the game so far to see, you know, a familiar name from the alpha test, from the beta test, still crop up in the future, in the release of the game as a currency. It's like, okay, I know where this came from, hey, I was there, that sort of thing. Anyway, thank you very much for watching and listening. I hope the devs take note that please at least change it away from alpha UEC, because that can be confused with something. So, even if you don't want to do any of the other things I mentioned here, just the confusion factor. Don't confuse new players to the game, alright? Because that's always bad. Anyway, thank you very much for watching and listening.